Hi, I'm Phil Webb, Principal Consultant with Select Business Solutions. The aim of every computer system should be to provide some value to the organisation for which it has been built. That value being some saving of costs, or improvement in efficiency or quality of service. The recognition of that business value is important to the success of the project, and has historically been one of the more difficult factors to define to such a degree that both the business sponsors and the systems developers can understand the motivation behind the project. Development of various techniques to define and model systems requirements and analysis has helped to bridge that gap between the business as an entity and the systems which help to run it. However, techniques such as business process modelling, while clearly helping to identify what the business does, how and when it does it, and who is responsible for different aspects of the business activities, still fails to cover the important topic of why the business does what it does. In August 2008, the Object Management Group, the accepted software industry standards body, formally adopted the Business Motivation Model, or BMM. BMM was originally developed by the Business Rules Group as far back as the year 2000 and defines a common vocabulary for communicating business plans. Prior to this, a number of different strategic business planning techniques have been in existence, with similar problems experienced in systems modelling techniques prior to the adoption of the unified modelling language, where a number of different groups were identifying similar but contrasting vocabularies. Any conversation about business strategy was often confused by the lack of a common definition for terms such as goal and objective. Often the resulting business plans were expressed simply in the form of printed documents, which relied on the planner to correctly express their intentions and on the reader to correctly interpret the written language in order to fully comprehend the future direction of the business. Again, this correlates well to early attempts at computer systems analysis, where textual descriptions of requirements were, and sadly still are, often misinterpreted. As software engineers have formalised the description of the systems they write, they have, it seems, moved closer to the business in an attempt to gain clearer, more precise requirements from the business. Hence business process modelling notation, and now the business motivation model. In addition to providing a common vocabulary, the provision of a standard set of elements that should be identified essentially gives a business planner a checklist of factors which should be considered while re-engineering their business. The term often used to describe standard sets of elements for use in a specific domain is a meta-model. A meta-model is a model which describes a related set of models and contains the main classes of the domain's concepts and the relationships between them. For instance, you might describe the structure of a database, its schema, as a meta-model, where the tables within the database are the concepts of interest within that particular domain. The BMM is a fairly straightforward meta-model, which at a high level contains elements to define the ends, the future state of the business, the means, the activities which need to be carried out to achieve those ends, and the assessment of influences on the ends and means. The meta-model also contains elements to describe the organisation of the business, allowing, for instance, other elements to be defined by groups within the business, and for the description of the business assets and offerings. We'll cover each of these areas of the BMM in further details in the following segments. If you're familiar with UML, the Unified Modelling Language, or BPMN, Business Process Modelling Notation, you may be aware that the Object Management Group defined not only the meta-models for those standards, but also prescribed standard notation for each of the elements in the definitions. This not only improves communication between software professionals, providing a common language, it also means that someone using one UML modelling tool will be able to switch to another fairly easily, and barring styling aspects, certainly should be able to understand the diagrams in another UML tool. At present, however, there is no standard notation for the business motivation model, which means that any tool vendor implementing the BMM needs to decide on their own notation and on the best representations of the different elements. Because of this, the examples of BMM diagrams we'll build during this module cannot be directly compared and contrasted with those in tools other than Select Architect, because the notation will differ. The chosen notation for Select Architect employs simple nodes and connectors with graphical icons and stereotypes to depict the types of elements on display. This type of notation is likely in most tools, since many will choose to use a UML profile to represent BMM, rather than having a dedicated metamodel implementation, such as that in Select Architect. However tool vendors choose to represent the BMM on diagrams, the definitions of the elements should remain consistent between implementations of the BMM in different tools. During the course of the module, we're building a business motivation model for a pizza delivery company, which has a number of kitchens across the city of Esquivel and aims to deliver pizza to customers' homes within a certain range of those kitchens. Our model, as we build it up, will enable us to better understand the broad and more specific aims of the business, how it will operationally achieve those aims through the implementation of specific tactics, what organizational challenges are faced by the business, and how internal and external factors affect its day-to-day operation. Understanding all these elements of the business model will allow us to implement new tactics and then subsequently relate these new tactics to changes in the business processes, some of which may be automated with computer systems. In the following sessions, we will cover the 6 areas of the business motivational model. The ends, what the business wishes to accomplish. The means, how the business aims to achieve those ends. Ownership and responsibility, who is responsible for defining and implementing the strategy. Business influencers, identifying the factors which influence the success of the business in achieving its goals. Assets and offerings, what the business uses and the services it provides. Relating business strategy to process and systems, identifying how the strategy defined in the business plan relates to the operation of the business in manual and IT systems. This concludes the introduction to strategic business modelling using the business motivation model.